Hi, this is Morley, and this is the M-Wire. Sorry about my absence over the weekend, folks. I was sick as a dog, probably with the flu that's going around that begins with O. And you know what? It feels like a flu. It doesn't feel any different than your garden variety flu. That's just my opinion, but I'm starting to feel better. I'm definitely not 100%. But I need to bring you an update on what's going on with Russia. There is a lot going on with Russia. And when I say a lot, I'm not just talking about Russia itself. I mean, there's quite a bit going on with just Russia itself. But countries that Russia is allied with, they're taking some very, very, very provocative moves all over the world. Yesterday, I spoke to a friend of mine's son who happens to be active duty in the U.S. Marine Corps. And he confirmed with me that we are indeed at DEFCON 2. That is factual information. DEFCON 2 essentially means that we are on the brink of nuclear war. That's how serious everything is right now. Now, I'm going to go over a lot of things that Russia is up to these days, but also what its allies are up to as well in the neighboring regions. Russian-Syrian pilots conduct joint air patrol mission along Golan Heights. So, as you may or may not know, things are pretty hot politically between Iran and Israel right now. These two countries do not like each other, and I guarantee you that if Iran and Israel got into a conflict, Russia, without question, would come to Iran's aid as they are allied. It would appear that Russia is essentially conducting quote-unquote military exercises all over the world, if you will. Here's another example of that. Ireland slams nearby Russian naval exercise, and this is as of today out of Bloomberg. Irish Foreign Minister Simon Coveney said Russia's intentions to undertake military exercises about 240 kilometers, 149 miles, off the Irish southwest coast is not welcome and not wanted right now, particularly given the location would effectively be on the western borders of the EU. While such an exercise would take place in part of Ireland's exclusive economic zone, the country doesn't have the power to stop Russia from doing so, since they would be in international waters, he said. This isn't time to increase military activity and tension in the context of what's happening with and in Ukraine at the moment, Coveney said. So as you can see, folks, Russia is taking very provocative measures all over the world under the guise of military exercises. Russia is just going hardcore all over the world with quote-unquote military exercises. Here's another example of that. Russia announces deployment of over 140 warships, some to Black Sea after Biden warning. So as you can see, 140 ships being deployed, they can pretty much send groups of these to pretty much anywhere, folks. I mean, they could send 10 here, send 20 there, send 5 there. I mean, they're just fanning out all over the world. With 140 ships, that sounds like an armada to me. You draw your own conclusions as to what that means. But that is an excessively large deployment at one time, don't you think? So as far as the United States is concerned, Ukraine just received its second shipment of weapons from the U.S. to help with the impending war in Russia. As well, Brandon, issues Putin warning, President will send troops if things deteriorate. So before, Brandon wasn't too keen on sending any troops whatsoever to this, and now all of a sudden he's recanting on that if things deteriorate. So obviously a lot of countries, as to what they originally planned how to deal with this, and given Russia's current very provocative actions with all these naval ships and planes and military exercises all over the world, countries all over the world that are opposed to Putin are rethinking their strategy in this, obviously. The options include sending 1,000 to 5,000 troops to the region with potential plans to increase the numbers tenfold if things deteriorate. Mr. Biden is expected to make a decision on the deployment as early as this week. At this point, there are no plans to send more troops to Ukraine. So obviously he's got to make a decision whether he wants to send actual American troops and not just, leave the whatever American troops that happen to be a part of NATO right now. And he's talking about sending tenfold that. So that implies as many as 50,000 troops could be headed over to Ukraine. This is absolute insanity, folks. Things are spiraling wildly out of control in just a couple of days. Bear the timeline here. Now, I've said in the past that if Russia does move in on Ukraine, in all likelihood, China will move in on Taiwan almost simultaneously because strategically speaking, there would never be a better time for them to attack. Now, this just happened today. Taiwan's military scrambles jets after detecting 39 Chinese warplanes. So basically, 39 Chinese warplanes essentially challenged Taiwanese airspace, and Taiwan's military had to basically get their jets in the air to deter. So this is another country that's looking to move on another country, if you will, just like Russia is looking to move on the Ukraine. And like I say, strategically speaking, since these two countries are allied, there would never ever be a better time for China to move on Taiwan than after Russia moves on the Ukraine. So as I was making this video, folks, I checked the news again, and this article just came out of Bloomberg. Now, this article goes over a lot of the things that some of which I've talked about, some of which I haven't talked about, more or less in point form with a little bit of elaboration, as opposed to one article that just talks about the same issue. So this is a good article that basically gives in point form with a little bit of elaboration as well as to everything that's going on in Europe with Russia. Just stay with me for this because this is very important information. Europe amps up warnings as Russia exercise Ukraine update. The bloc's foreign ministers meet in Brussels on Monday. Blinken will join the meeting by video to discuss Ukraine. So here's some of the key developments that's happening right now, folks. U.S. orders families of diplomats out of Ukraine. European economies are at risk in a clash with Russia. UK warns that Russia is plotting to install a pro-Kremlin government in Ukraine. Now that is definitely a slap in the face to Russia. Unless they have proof that this is actually happening, I'm sure Vladimir Putin is just looking at this thinking, oh, okay, so they're just continuing with their disinformation campaign. German Navy head quits after making remarks favorable to Russia. Wow. There are just so many things happening with this, folks. I'm still not done yet. The German government has yet to make a decision on whether to approve delivery of artillery pieces to Ukraine from Estonia, according to a defense ministry spokesman. The weapons belong to the former East German army and were transferred first to Finland and then to Estonia, spokesman Christian Thiel said at a regular government news conference. Both German and Finnish approval is required before Estonia can deliver them to Ukraine in line with standard practice in such cases, he added. Germany has ruled out that directly supplying Ukraine with lethal weapons despite pressure from Kiev. Now get ready for this one, folks. EU announces financial support for Ukraine. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced new funds for Ukraine that include an emergency macro-financial assistance package of 1.2 billion euros, 1.4 billion US dollars, according to a statement on Monday. The funds will include both grants and loans. The Commission will also start work on a second longer-term package and plans to allocate another 120 million euros to Ukraine in bilateral assistance. As another footnote, Canada has donated $120 million to Ukraine's impending war effort. So every country around the world is just sending either weapons or weapons and cash to the Ukraine right now. That's how convinced that they are that war is indeed imminent. Denmark threatens never-seen-before sanctions. Danish Foreign Minister Jeppe Kofod warned that the EU was ready to impose sanctions never seen before. against Russia in the event it invades Ukraine. We are ready to undertake the most severe sanctions, also more severe than in 2014, he said, referring to the measures imposed by the bloc after Russia annexed Crimea. Kofod and Putin would be totally isolated and would pay a heavy price if he tried to use military force to change Europe's borders. So folks, this is a very good illustration as to how much of a tinderbox the world is right now. It's not just between Russia and Ukraine, but also Russia's allies are ready to, if Russia should decide to pounce on the Ukraine first. All the world's top military analysts all agree that we have never been so close to World War III in decades. And that's just not my opinion, that's their opinion. I mean, think about it. If we have a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, we have a conflict between China and Taiwan, we have a conflict between Israel and Iran, please tell me, how is that not a world war? I wish I could give you something to indicate that these situations are calming down and slowing down, but they're not, folks. I mean, the fact that Russia is conducting all these quote-unquote military exercises all over the world is very, very telling. They're not playing around. All it takes is one false move from one side and we are at war. That's how precarious this situation truly is. But thank you so much for coming along with me to my update. I will keep you informed, folks. Like I say, just the barrage of news that I've given you in this update, like I say, it's coming fast and furious now. But I will keep you updated as things further develop. Please remember to like, to comment, to share, and of course to subscribe for future updates. Until the next update, God bless.